Well, we're back at it. Another episode of the Cart Barn Podcast. Chris Limley and Greg DeWalt. Greg, we've got a really interesting guest this week, Janie Jackson from Huntsville. Maybe not a household name for most of the people throughout the state, but she certainly had a great high school career and college career.
Yeah, Janie is, if you were around high school golf back in 2010, 2011, 2012, you knew the name Janie Jackson. She was a tremendous player. She won three high school state championships consecutively for playing for Huntsville High. As a senior in high school, she made the cut at the Navistar LPGA Classic as a Monday qualifier. She played in the 2014 U.S. Women's Open, played college golf at University of Arizona for 1 year, then transferred back to the University of Alabama, where she ended up being an all-SEC performer her senior year. Played on the Epson Tour, Symetra Tour, won on the Symetra Tour, and got out on the LPGA. Had some injuries, kind of derailed her career, and now she's transitioned back. She's living in Huntsville, working in private business, but tremendous player, and she's got some great stories to tell on this week's episode. So you may not know the name Janie Jackson, but you will after you hear her stories about some of her adventures out when she was living in Arizona while playing professionally.
Yeah, Greg, some great stories. Gosh, and think about her playing in an LPGA event as a high school senior that was held in Montgomery at an RTJ course. The Senator, I believe it was, where they
Yeah.
played that. So an additional state tie within the state tie. So yeah, without any more rambling from us, let's get into this week's episode of the Cart Barn with Janie Jackson. Welcome back to the Cart Barn Podcast. We're excited today to have Janie Jackson from Huntsville, Alabama, joining us. Janie, welcome to the Cart Barn.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Good to have you on, Janie. Followed your career from afar, being from over here. I'm in Florence and used to be in the newspaper business. So we crossed paths a little bit in your junior days, back when you were dominating the high school ranks.
That was a long time ago, huh?
Time flies when you're having fun.
That's what they say.
Why don't you just kind of give us a little bit of your background? I know, did you play at Huntsville Country Club or did you grow up at Valley Hill?
So from a really young age, I was at Valley Hill probably until I was 8-ish. And then when the ledges opened, my dad joined up there. So we swapped our membership up on top of the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Not a bad place to play every day growing up.
When you're that young, I don't think you realize how lucky you are to be at a place like that. But now I'm very, very well aware of how fortunate I was. And my mom will tell the story all the time. Second I got my driver's license, I would go straight from high school up to the golf course, and I would stay until dark. So I think by that time, I definitely realized how lucky I was to be at a place like that.
Were there a lot of other kids up there at the ledges to play with, or were you playing in the men's games for early on?
A little bit of both. In high school, I would play pretty much every day. I would meet Garrett Moores, he played at Randolph, and Michael Ziert up at the ledges, and the three of us would play every single day after high school. And then on the weekends, some of my dad's buddies would reach out to me and have me go play in the men's group on either Saturday or Sunday. And I always loved doing that. It was a blast. So a little bit of both.
Did you play the members tees with the guys, or did they let you play forward?
No, they made me play with them, which I loved. It feels a little sweeter if you can beat them from the same tees at 16 and being a girl.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I imagine that was kind of like your first job, taking all their money, right?
I mean, seriously, right? Sometimes you can leave with a couple $100 in cash and be like, yeah, that was a good day as a kid.
But now, did you have to pay your own gambling debts, or did your dad, when you didn't win, did he pay for you?
Well, see, here's the trick is if you go up there with no cash on you, then you know you have to win. You don't really have a choice, so you just have to kind of figure it out. But no, I mean, at the time, yeah, absolutely. If I lost, I'd be like, Dad, I need some cash. He'd be like, "Who'd you lose it to?" And I'd tell him. He'd be like, "Oh, I don't want to give that guy any money."
Do you remember? I mean, what life lessons were you learning that you didn't realize at the time from being around those guys?
Gosh, I don't know if it's those guys in specific, but I'd say the biggest life lesson that the game teaches you from such an early age is patience. Something that I really didn't have when I was a kid and even into my 20s and now into my 30s. I mean, even when I play, um, gosh, it'll still drive you nuts and you have to find a way to be patient. It's just you and a golf course out there. So it's very easy to beat yourself up. Um, one man game and you can learn how to be patient and understand that there's going to be bad shots, there's going to be bad holes, there's going to be bad days, but it's not the end of the world. And there's always the next shot, or sorry, or the next day. Um, so patience is definitely the number one lesson that the game gave me, taught me, um, everything like that.
Sure. Janie, when I guess your dad got you into the game.
Yeah, which is funny because he is not a golfer whatsoever. But me and my little brother are both pretty good players. But my dad got me in it at a really young age.
Who did you start working with? Who taught you the basics and
The
what?
basics was Terry Wilbanks. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but he's still up at the Ledges. I believe he's running like the director of memberships up there. But it's still so cool because I'll go up and I'll see him working, and he has a picture of us in his office from when I was 6, 7 years old, and he was there sort of every step of the way, um, from the time that I mean I could barely remember it, but he was the guy from the beginning.
Hmm.
When do you feel like you first fell in love with the game? Was it as, a 9-year-old, or was it as you kind of got better?
Yeah, so funny enough, and I'm not afraid to admit it, I actually really didn't like the game. Um, I hated going to practice. I hated being a kid and traveling every summer, all summer long. Um, I didn't really start to love it until I was 16, and I think it's because it gave me a place to drive my car to. Um, you get your driver's license, you just want to be driving. So around the time that I got my license, I think that's when I really started to love it, and probably for the wrong reasons. But then, like I was saying earlier, going up to the Ledges and playing with Garrett and Michael every day, we ended up having so much fun that I think that was sort of like the turning point in the game for me to where I really started to appreciate it and love it.
So everybody we've talked to on the Cart Barn has a story about maybe doing something that they shouldn't have been doing at the golf course and not getting caught. You got any of those stories? Getting a
You
cart
know,
stuck or something?
not not that I can think of off the top of my head. Believe it or not, I was actually a pretty good kid. Stayed out of trouble. Now, we would do silly things at the golf course. Donuts, uh, hit balls off the range where we shouldn't. Um, we Garrett and I did drive the golf cart into a bunker one time, but it was an accident. But for the most part, I think also at least for me, like when you're young and you're going to a nice club and you're a young girl, you're getting the same privileges as the older men. Um, you realize, all right, I need to earn my keep around here. So I always tried to be on my best behavior uh, when I was at the golf course.
I know you had a tremendous high school career. One state 3 times, 6A champion. What was that like? And I know I remember one time I think state championship was at the Capitol Hill, the Senator, and probably the first time I saw you hit a ball, you almost drove a par four, and I'm like, she's definitely got a different game than most. What about those high school days?
I miss them. I'll start by saying that I miss them going out and playing the red tees every day. When I go back and think about some high school rounds and tournaments in specific, again, I really just miss it. Like it was so long ago, which is so sad. But sometimes I'll go back and think about the day. I don't even remember what tournament it was, but we were playing at Goose Pond, and it was an early start, and I think I was like a junior in high school, maybe a senior. And I showed up late. I overslept, and I remember my mom coming upstairs and waking me up and being like, "Hurry up, you got to drive to Scottsboro." And I showed up in like 5 minutes before my tee time and hit like 3 balls. I was like, "This is gonna be a bad day." And went out and shot a 3-putt par and a bogey and missed a 3-footer on the last hole. So when I think about high school golf, I'm like, if only I could have 2-putted that one hole, parred that one hole, and made the 3-footer on the last hole, I would have had a 59 to my name. But those are things like as you get older and you're playing in college and then you play professionally and they're moving the tees back. How often is someone really going to go that low on good hard golf courses? So it was just like I always had fun with it in high school. I'd always try to see like how many greens can I drive today? Because you'd go out to Sunset Landing or Municipal and have a tournament, and your par fours are 240 yards. I'm like, this is so much fun. So I miss that part of it for sure.
Is that kind of how you learn to go low? I mean, there's an art form to learning to go low instead of protecting. If you get to 2 under, most of us get nervous and we try to protect 2 under. But people like Bryson DeChambeau said they would play the forward tees a lot to learn to make birdies and shoot low numbers.
Yeah, so I started working with Mark Blackburn when I was 14. And the number one thing that Mark always drilled into my head was hit driver on every hole. Hit driver on every hole. Get it as close to the green as you can, and try to make as many birdies as you can. If you're hitting driver and on a short par 4 and you flare it out to the right, all right, worst case scenario would be it's out of bounds. You got to re-tee. But, say that's not a threat, then if you have to, you're punching through, but you're so close to the green that then, all right, it's just a regular up and down. How can I get this up and down out of a bunker or a little chip or whatever it may be? So I was always very aggressive off the tee in high school, and I think it sort of made me excited to be so young and be able to hit it so far. That was my strength, right? Like my short game didn't improve until much later in my career. But as a kid, I loved hitting driver on every hole. I thought it was the coolest thing. Maybe not the smartest, but Mark at least had my back on that.
So was he still in Gunnersville when you first started working with him?
Yeah, he was still at Gunner's Landing. Gosh, I mean, that guy did so much for me. And I mean, it's so cool where he is now. But nobody more deserving in the whole world. He's so committed to what he does. And props to his wife and his kids too, because he's a busy man. But he's a great dad and he's a great husband and he's a great coach. So very fortunate to have had him in my corner, for 15 years.
You brought up the old Huntsville Municipal, Becky Pierce Municipal. That of course it no longer exists. I think it's walking trails, just kind of green space now.
Yeah. It bums me out every time I drive past it. I live about a mile away from that golf course. So when I jump on the parkway and go to work every day, driving to my construction job, and I look over and I'm like, man, that's the municipal where I used to have so much fun as a kid. And it's just so funny how life changes so much as you get older. But the memories certainly don't fade.
Yeah. That my folks lived about a mile from there, and that's where when I was in college, I would go out and play there during the winter to try to keep my game halfway in shape.
And the winter was good too, so dormant.
Yeah.
Ball would just keep going.
Yeah, except when you're hitting persimmons like I had in my bag. You probably never hit persimmons, have you?
I can't say that I have.
We need to do it. Get you a test with you. Let you see how the real players played back in the day.
Oh man, that'd really be testing my patience.
Mm.
But once you got in high school, you had this great career, and you were regular on the AJGA circuit also. When did you kind of start getting noticed and get college offers? I know you started at Arizona before coming back to Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, around my freshman year of high school, the offers started rolling in, and then I started. You know, I don't know if it's the same now, but now that I'm thinking about it, at the time it felt so young. Like you start getting recruited at, 13, 14 years old. Uh, you don't even know, like you don't know anything yet. But you're starting to go and visit these schools, which I believe I started my visits this summer after my freshman year of high school. And by sophomore year, I had it narrowed down to 5. And after my sophomore year, I went and visited LSU. I had done other visits, but after my LSU visit, I was going to say 100% dead set, but obviously I wasn't. I was 99% dead set on going to LSU, um, which is so interesting. Growing up, huge Alabama fan, we hated LSU, but it was better than Auburn. So I leave my LSU visit, and I'm like, I'm definitely going there. And my junior year rolls around, and I get a letter in the mail from the University of Arizona. Um, and I'd never been there. I'd never talked to the coaches. It was just sort of one of those things where I'm like, yeah, we'll push that one to the side. And I was young, and I was like, that's so far away from home. I just don't know about that. But then my junior year of high school, the coaches started coming to watch me every single week, no matter where I was. They came and watched all summer long, every week. So I remember saying to my parents, I'm like, well, that's a little far for me, but the coaches seem really nice, and that's really kind of them to come out and watch me that much, especially on the East Coast. I mean, that's a long trip for them. But they would come out and they would walk all 18 holes, even if it was 30 degrees or wherever we were, pouring rain. I said, I'm at least going to go visit. And I went and visited and just fell in love with it. Fell in love with the campus, the amenities, the weather. They were probably smart to bring me out for a visit in January. And that's where I ended up going.
What were the other schools? You said you had it narrowed down to 5. So who were the 5?
Yeah, it was Alabama, LSU, Vanderbilt, Ole Miss, and Georgia. And then later on, Arizona entered the picture. And, those were they're hard conversations to have as a kid, with the other schools that were looking at you and you had been talking to. I remember calling Karen Bonson at LSU and telling her that I had decided to go to Arizona. And I remember I just came downstairs from my room and I was crying, and my mom was like, "It's okay." And it feels, I don't know, it feels wrong, I guess, when you're 16 years old and you'd been talking to these certain coaches, these certain schools for over a year, and they were committed to you, and then you choose to go somewhere else. I mean, I know part of the process, and to them, they were probably just like, all right, we'll move on to the next one. But to you as a kid, it was difficult. But all of my conversations were everybody. I mean, this is probably pretty standard, but everybody's so understanding, and I ended up having a really cool conversation when I called Greg up at Vanderbilt and said that I was going to Arizona, because that's his background too. And he's close with the current coach that was there. I believe he was her coach actually when he coached at Arizona. So the only thing that really sticks out to me when I go back in my brain and think about the recruiting process is I wasn't even looking in the direction of Alabama at all, ever, throughout high school, which when I go back and look at it, I still don't really know why. Maybe just wanted to do something different. Also, it was Emma Talley was the same age as me, and she had committed to Alabama back when we were in like the 8th grade. And Mick Potter only had one full scholarship for our incoming year. So I knew that off the rip, and rightfully so. Emma deserved that. I mean, amateur champion, national champion. Uh, she's a stud. But Mick was very upfront with me right off the bat about that, saying, "Hey, we'd love to have you, but I can only give you X percentage of a scholarship, at least your freshman year, and then we don't know what'll happen moving forward." Sort of in my brain, I'm like, well, I've worked this hard my whole life, and I feel like I'm deserving of a full scholarship. So I was just sort of focusing, in directions where someone could provide that for me, and not only for me, give my dad a little break, help him out. So, yeah, that always sticks out to me in my head is when I was that age and being recruited. Alabama was never a top contender, I should say, and then I end up there.
I noticed when you gave us your list, you never did consider Auburn, that other school in the state, huh?
We don't say that word. Might as well be a curse word.
Well, you made a good choice. You went out to Arizona and had a really nice freshman year. Honorable mention All America, I believe, or all Pac-12 honorable mention. Then you decided to come back to Alabama.
Yeah, so I got really fortunate. When I decided that I was going to transfer, I knew in my head that I wanted to be back closer to home. I really wanted to be at Alabama. I knew that my friends were there, my friends on the golf team were there. And I knew that I would get better, but I would also have fun. And I mean, Mick and Susan have been there for such a long time and have had so much success. I knew that I was going to be pushed, especially being on a college campus where there are so many distractions around. But I knew that they were going to push me and that they were going to make me better. So I got very fortunate when I decided that I wanted to transfer. And, after I got released from Arizona, a girl was deciding to transfer out of Alabama. So a spot opened up, a scholarship opened up, and I got very fortunate. I think it was certainly meant to happen.
Were you coming back regardless of the scholarship situation?
Yeah, I might have, shifted and maybe done like an Old Miss or something like that. But I definitely wanted to be SEC. I really got so fortunate. And this is such a long time ago, but I do think that when I first got released, the girl that was leaving Alabama hadn't told Mick yet, and she hadn't been released yet. But I think Mick knew it was coming. And so obviously he couldn't promise me anything, but as the summer progressed, then that spot did open up. So it made the transition a whole lot better.
Who all was on the team with you at Bama?
So Emma Talley was obviously there. Emma and we've been close from probably 13 years old, 14 years old, just playing the same junior tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
And then Hannah Collier from Birmingham, Spain Park, was a really good friend of mine, and she was 2 years older than me. But we did get one good year together at Alabama. But those two were my closest friends on the team. I had just known them from junior golf and high school golf and things like that. And then obviously a lot of my high school friends were at Alabama, not on the golf team, but they were there on campus. And then I knew my little brother was going to be coming there the following year. And my parents go down for football games every weekend. So I kind of knew that that's where I wanted to be. And fortunately it worked out.
When you got to college, is that the first time you kind of realized it was a different situation from junior golf, and the training aspects and all that were a lot different and a lot more of a business type situation?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, the shift from college to professional is far bigger shift, but the shift from high school to college it's huge for a lot of different reasons, right? Like not just the golf part, but then you throw the golf part in, and and it's like a whole new world, and you're having to adjust at 18 years old. But it's fun because, you know, you start to see some like serious structure. Like, okay, we have practice from 2 to 5 Monday through Friday, and on Saturday we have 8 a.m. tee times, and on Sunday we have qualifying, and on Monday, Wednesday, Friday we have 7 a.m. weight training. So it's a big shift, but it's an exciting shift if you're ready to do the work and see improvements with the golf game, physically, mentally, all the above. And I think I was ready for that. So it was exciting to me.
Were you still working with Blackburn during this time?
Yes, I never shifted from him from the time I was 14 until I was 28. I did a little like 4 month uh 4 month little gig with Jorge Parada out of New York, um, at Liberty National. Um, and then after those 4 months, I called Mark and I'm like, "Can I please come back?" He's like, "I knew you were gonna do this." Um, but yeah, basically Mark for a solid 15 years.
Nice.
Mark and his little British, Scottish, Irish accent, right?
Yeah, I loved it. You know, when I was 15, I'm like, "Oh, this guy's so cool. Definitely want to be around him." And then he just ends up being, I mean, as you guys know, the #1 coach in the world. So pretty cool that I was able to link up with him out of little old Gunnersville, Alabama. Crazy.
Yeah.
Really is. When while you're at Alabama, I think in 2016 you were all SEC, and when did you kind of decide? You know, I think I got a chance to do something professionally.
Well, I knew that I still had, you know, I should say, I'm not going to say I didn't have the talent, but I'll be the first to admit I didn't really have the work ethic that going straight from college to the LPGA Tour required. Um, and not that I was out partying or anything like that. I would have such a hard time going to the golf course for 7, 8 hours. Like that was never me. Um, I would, my attention would be gone so fast, especially if I'm playing, that's a different story, but I can't go sit on the range and the putting green and the chipping green for 8 hours. And there were plenty of people that were doing that, and I was not one of them. So I obviously spent my fair share of years on the Symetra / Epson Tour, going to Q school every year, trying to earn my way up there. But it was a process for me.
Did you ever embrace that aspect of it in your early professional years, or?
Yeah, so in 2019, I moved back to Arizona. I moved to Scottsdale because, you know, after playing 2 years on the Symetra Tour and you're seeing all your friends on the LPGA, you're like, this sucks. Like, I need to get up there. And I knew that during my off seasons, I needed to be somewhere where the weather was nice and I was excited to get out and go play. I mean, you guys know the weather in Huntsville in December, January, February, you don't want to go play golf. And that's where you get better. So I moved to Scottsdale, and actually Mark helped me out with that move. At the time, he was working with guys that were based out of Silverleaf Club in North Scottsdale, and he had me come out there with him 1 week, and he's like, you know, I'll just bring you out with the guys, we'll go to Silverleaf, and it was always so much fun. You know, we'd play 8 people in a group, and it would be me and Max Homa and Kevin Chappell and Mike Weir and, you know, all of Mark's studs. And I ended up meeting the owner of the club while we were there. Well, he played with us, and we just really hit it off. And he's like, "Hey, I would love to have a female ambassador at the club if you ever find your way out to Arizona." And I think that sort of just like clicked in my head. I'm like, oh, look who I'm playing golf with today. Like, I'm playing golf with some of the best players in the world, and they live here. So that must mean something, right? So I moved out there, and as soon as I moved out there, that was the best thing I ever did for my game. The following year, start of 2020 season, I go out and I win my first tournament on the Symetra Tour. And I was playing golf every day, all day long in the winter, and it's 70 and sunny and it's perfect. And I'm at this amazing club. I mean, it's stupid. It's so nice. I'm playing my weekends with John Rahm, and I mean, you have no choice but to want to be there. And so I go out and I win my first tournament. And it's funny. I have a screenshot of a conversation between my caddy and I. I texted him about a week before the tournament, and I said, "Hey, David, how do you feel about winning next week?" Like, I just knew that my game was in a place that it had never been at before. And so fly down to Florida for this opening tournament, and the golf course in Winter Haven, Florida, and the wind was blowing 40 miles an hour all 3 days, and I go out and I win the tournament by 8 shots, and come home or back to Arizona, and I'm on this high, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to go out and play again. And then COVID happens, and it shut the tour down, and that was really, really hard for me, because I'd spent so long trying to get to that place mentally where I had that level of confidence, and I'd finally gotten it, and then the world shuts down. But the golf course did not shut down in Arizona, so I continued every single day. Would go to Silverleaf, and I'd play and I'd practice and just try to get better, because I knew that, well, we didn't know when the world was going to go back to normal, but I knew that when the tour started back up, my win wasn't going to go anywhere. That was still going to be there for the year. And unfortunately, they changed the rules a little bit on the Symetra Tour that year, where instead of the top 10 earning their card, only the top 5 did. So I knew I had my work cut out for me, but it was doable because I already had a huge jump start. And then the tour kicks back up. I believe it was July in 2020, and ended up finishing the year 5th on the money list, right on the line, and earned my card for 2021. And from there, I just continued sort of the same mindset. Obviously, the competition is steeper on the big tour, but it was just such a sense of accomplishment, something that you work your whole life for. And it's funny, the hardest thing I've ever done in golf is try to make that tour. Like, getting there, trying to make it is unbelievably hard because everybody is so good. But yeah, moving to Arizona was the best thing I ever did for my game, and I stayed there until I decided to stop playing.
That's a great story, Janie. But you dropped some names, John Rahm and Max Homa and Mike Weir, etc. Being around those guys that have won majors and won on the regular tour, and like you said, some of the best players in the world, just being around those guys has got to have some positive impacts on your game physically and mentally, I would think.
Yeah, definitely. Playing with them, I mean, that was a highlight of me, living out there and being a part of that club, playing golf with just some really, really cool people that you would never have the opportunity to do here. But it was always so much fun. We'd go out, and they'd be like, "You're playing with us." I'm like, "Guys, hey, you're playing with us." I'm talking about tee boxes, and I'm like, "Guys, I don't know about this." I mean, John Rahm and Wyndham Clark, who I would play with, they're hitting it 340, 350 in the desert. But it was just so, I think it was so cool. But playing with John, I learned a lot. That guy has more confidence than anybody I've ever met in my life. And he expects 150% of himself every time he goes out. Even when we're playing in gym shorts and a t-shirt, which we could do there, which was awesome. He'd expect to shoot 63 every time we went out. And if he shot 68, he was mad. Like that wasn't good enough for him on his home course. And we'd be playing, and he'd have an 80-yard wedge shot in. He'd be standing over the ball, and before he would hit it, maybe he was, being funny, but I think he's being serious. Like, I'm the best wedge player in the world. There's no reason why I shouldn't get this shot within 3-4 feet every time I hit it. I'm like, this guy's nuts. Like, there are so many other factors. But every time he would hit a wedge shot or a chip or whatever it would be, it wasn't within 3 feet. It wasn't good enough for him. And, John Rahm's one of the best players in the world. So you see his mindset, and you're like, all right, I need to get to that mindset. So when I was living there, I know I said early on I hated going to the golf course. I wouldn't do it for 6, 7, 8 hours. Then I'd make that move to Arizona, and I'm playing with John and Wyndham and all these guys, and I'd take my TrackMan and I'd go to the range, and I would just sit there for hours, which I never did growing up. And I would play. They would teach me about these games you could play on the TrackMan, and I started doing that, and I fell in love with it. And they don't know that, but a big part of, I think, me having that mental shift was because of them.
Absolutely. So enlighten us about the games that you were playing on TrackMan and how that made you better.
I can't remember the name of, well, I guess it was maybe a combine, maybe TrackMan calls it. But the one that I would play, and I would kind of create it myself. So TrackMan will give you the option to sort of create your own training games. So I would create one and I would break it up into sections. So like for an hour, you choose your distances. So I would choose, I'd start with wedges. I'd do from 40 yards to 100 yards. And I'd say, give me 80 balls. And I would put it on randomized. So I'd pull out, my 3 or 4 wedges that I was going to use for those distances. You would get a ball out, and TrackMan would spit you a number, and it would say, 67 yards. So I'd hit my 67 yards. Then the next number, next ball is going to be 42 yards. And the next one's 98 yards. So I just randomized it. And I would do that for hours, because I would do 40 to 100, then I would do 100 to 150, then 150 to 200, and I'd do it all the way up to 280. And it would take so long, but I never got bored, because you're doing something different every 30 seconds. It's a constant switch up. So I would do that pretty much every single day on the driving range, and it would take me 4 hours to get through that. And I would do it either before I played or after I played. And then I'd go putt and chip and bunker and all of those things. So it's funny, because as I started to learn how to practice, I would go, and 8 hours would go by, and I wouldn't realize that it had been that long.
That's pretty
but I think
cool.
that's the way it's supposed to be, because you're enjoying it, so you don't realize how much time has gone by.
Yeah. So you're playing the back tees at Silverleaf with the best players in the world, and they're hitting it 320, 340, 350. Where did you stack up on that?
Well, in Arizona, it's like cheating, desert golf. You're getting some extra distance. My numbers, or my TrackMan numbers in Arizona, carry would be about 290, and my total would be about 305. But that's in the desert. It's certainly not accurate. You're getting probably 15, 20 extra yards out there. So I could hang with them, but it would still hurt my pride a little bit when, they'd drive me up to my ball and I'd hit, and then we'd go up another 30, 40, 50 yards to theirs. But it was good for me.
What are those numbers like, Huntsville?
My distance numbers?
Yeah.
Stock. So, well, not now. After all my injuries and everything, I've lost some distance. But back when I was, I'd say, in my prime, pitching wedge stock number be 134, and then it would sort of go up in 12-yard increments, 11 to 12-yard increments. So 9 iron was 145, 146. 8 iron would get close to 160. 7 iron. 7 iron was always 172. No matter what I did, my 7 iron always went 172. 6 iron 185. 5 iron was 197, and then the gap between the 5 and the 4 was a little smaller. 4 iron would go about 205. That's what we like to hear. I'll tell you one last quick story about my time at Silverleaf. I get asked to come play this money game one day, and there's a girl on the tour that was also playing out at Silverleaf, and she said, "Hey, come play this money game with me." And I'm like, "All right, I'm gonna go to the ATM." So I go to the ATM and I get out $300. That's gotta be plenty. I get to the first hole, and these guys that we're playing with, my friend didn't inform me that they were billionaires with a B. And the guy goes, "All right, we're playing Wolf. $800 a hole on the front nine. $1,500 a hole, holes 10 through 15, and $2,000 a hole, 16, 17, and 18. I've got $300 in my bag." Like, oh my goodness. I was like, I need to leave right now. I don't belong in this game. My friend that I played on tour with was like, "Don't worry, these guys are really, they're not very good golfers." And I'm like, "Yeah, but they get strokes, you know, like they're getting pops and we're not." And so anyways, I go out and I wasn't really familiar with how to play Wolf at the time, but they taught me. We make the turn and I'm up like $1,500. I'm like, all right, that's pretty good, but you know, this can change in one hole. And we get to hole 16 and it's a par 3, and it's my turn to be the Wolf, and I hit it to about 3 feet, and so I dumped everybody and I went solo Wolf, and won the hole, and ended up walking away that day with $9,000 in cash. Walked to my car with an envelope full of cash, and I was like, "Man, I need to play this game every day. This needs to be my full-time job." But I was very well aware that that probably wouldn't be the case every time, so I was very cautious with joining those guys. I did do it a few more times and had some good luck, none that good.
How good were they? How good did those guys end up being? Were they hacks or?
No, I mean, you know, they were 8 to 10 handicaps. I mean,
Yeah.
but then they would have us play as a +3 or +4, so then they would get even more strokes. So it was like you had to be on your A game, but you know, Wolf is so fun, and your team switch every hole, so it really just it was a blast. I miss that, but at the same time, I don't miss the pressure of that, because had I gotten into a sticky situation, that would have been horrible.
Yeah. You gave us a Rom story. Got a Max or Wyndham story or anybody else?
I mean, Max he's so funny. I mean, if you guys have seen his interviews or follow him on social media or anything like that, what you're seeing there is exactly what he's like in person. He's hilarious, a jokester, but works very hard. Wyndham, on the other hand, Wyndham's a lot more reserved than Max, but it's funny. So I knew Wyndham when we were kids from playing on the junior circuit. One, he has such a cool story. I mean, it's a sad story, but it's a good story. But when Wyndham and I played, I think it was the first round we played together at Silverleaf, I remember I looked at him and I said, "Why are you not winning golf tournaments?" And he goes, "Why are you not winning golf tournaments?" It's funny. Wyndham he's one of the best ball strikers I've ever seen in my life. He hits it, well, at Arizona, he was hitting it 350, and I'm talking on a string. Like, the ball would never move off a string. And I just thought that was so cool. But I don't really have any crazy Wyndham stories or Max stories. I was so in awe every time I would play with Wyndham, because he was so good. But he was one of those, I mean, this was back in, 2020, 2021, where he wasn't a household name yet, and then he goes and wins the U.S. Open, and it was so well deserved. I was sitting on my couch watching it and cried like a baby, but he was crying like a baby, so I blamed it on him. But it was really, really cool.
That's
very
cool.
well deserved.
So obviously you can text John Rahm and Wyndham and Max, and they'll get right back to you, right?
I hadn't talked to them in a few years, but I do have their phone numbers. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, you Go ahead, Greg.
I was just going to say, in doing a little research for this, I think in 2016 you won $365 in playing professionally.
That sounds about right.
What was it like getting that first professional paycheck?
Well, the $365 one, I'm like,
Yeah.
man, this doesn't even sniff my hotel expenses for the week. But it is cool, right? And then like when you get your first 4-figure check, then your first 5-figure check, like they start to add up, and you're like, all right, maybe I can see how this would be fun. But golf is tricky. I mean, what other sport are you playing professionally where you're going out and you're paying for your own flights, your own rental car, your own hotel, all of that every week? So it's, as much as I do love or did love playing on the tour, it certainly had its challenges. Expenses are high, which comes with a lot of pressure too. And it was something that I never quite mastered. You know, I would get stuck in the mindset of, I really hope I play good this week because I missed a cut last week, and my bills are adding up, or whatever it may be. And if you're not having a good year as the year goes on and that sponsorship money starts to dwindle down, you're like, I need some good weeks. And that's not how you're supposed to think about it, but I did from time to time, and I was my own worst enemy out there, without a doubt. Looking back, do I wish that I could sort of change some things? Yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, if I did that, I would have a different story. And I don't know. I say these things, but going back, I'm proud of myself for even making it there, especially given all the injuries that I had/have. So then when I think about it that way, I'm like, well, if I could go back, who's to say that I would make it again? You never know. So I'm very fortunate for my journey. I miss certain things about it, but I don't miss it all that much, which is interesting. I think that probably has a lot to do with my body. My body definitely thanks me now for not playing golf 6 days a week and flying on an airplane twice a week. So sleeping in different beds every week, all of those things add up. And people don't think that golf is hard on your body, but it was brutal on mine.
When did you first start getting the injuries? Was it like 2022, 2021, late
Oh
21?
no, I had my first hip surgery my sophomore year of college. So that was 2014. Had another hip surgery a year or two after that. A year or two after that, I have a wrist surgery. And then 2022, I believe it was, 2022, I have my first shoulder surgery. About 8 months goes by, I have another shoulder surgery. Another 8 months goes by, I have another shoulder surgery. And I was like, I think that my time playing golf competitively and professionally has probably come to an end after that. I think it was 6 or 7 orthopedic surgeries that I had over the span of 7-8 years. So it was time. And I was already, at that time, I was 29, 30 years old, and I was one of the oldest ones out there. All these girls that were out there are, coming straight out of high school or straight out of college. So they're anywhere from 17 to 22 years old, and I was the old lady out there, one of them. So I sort of took it as a sign. Those injuries started rolling in again, and I was like, yeah, this is probably my time to transition out.
Was there one? Can you look back on your surgeries? Was it over practicing that were causing the shoulder surgeries, or just flukes, or what?
Every single one of my injuries, my doctor said, was basically overuse, over rotating, just over time. There was never like an incident where I was like, oh, I just tore my rotator cuff, or oh, I just tore my labrum in my hip. It would just progressively get worse. And that was the case with both my hips, my wrist, and my shoulder. There was not a certain moment where something happened. It was just built up over time. And, you're doing all that all that rotating and firing with your body, and you're pounding the ground hundreds and hundreds or thousands of times a day, those start to add up. So I think over time, everything would just sort of rub together, and the tear would just get worse and worse and worse. And then, the shoulder was definitely the worst one. Torn rotator cuff and torn labrum is not enjoyable whatsoever. And I'm at a point now where I know I'll never get my range of motion back to 100%, but it's at least in a tolerable place pain-wise. So we'll take it. My backswing's gotten significantly shorter, and my numbers have gotten significantly shorter, but that's okay.
Well,
How much do you get to play now?
I play maybe once or twice a month, and that's a big maybe. Now I played 2 times in the same week 2 weeks ago, so that was big for me. But I've now deemed myself a fair weather golfer only, so that leaves my golfing range from about April through May, and then we're going to skip over these hot summer months and maybe be back on the golf course in September, October, November.
Are people not coming up to you every week saying, come play the Scramble tournament with me?
Yeah, so the scrambles I go play because those are just fun. I get to play the red tees. You play the red tees and, have a couple beers with the guys. That's a good time. Loosens up my shoulder a little bit too. So I never turn down the scrambles, but a lot of the weekend games I say no to, and I go to the lake and do a whole lot of nothing.
One thing I wanted to touch on, and this is kind of going back, you made the cut at the Navistar LPGA tournament. Was it after your senior year? You remember that?
I was 17, I think, because is that right? Wait, do we know what year that was? I have it hanging in my office in there. I can't remember off the
No,
top
I
of my
didn't
head.
write that down. I know you played in the 2014 U.S. Women's Open as an amateur, but I vaguely remember you making the cut at the Navistar. And
I was in
that,
high school.
was that like, oh, well, this is, because I think you Monday queued for it, and
I
got
did
in and
Monday
make the
Q.
cut. I mean, are you thinking, oh, this is easy?
Well, that golf course is probably my favorite golf course in the whole state. Senator. So we're gonna not forget about that. But I did have so much fun. It was cool to get an inside look into it in high school, where you're seeing the player dining and all the coaches and caddies and just like the dynamic of everything and what the lifestyle is like. So to get to see that as a high schooler, now I'm saying that I'm excited to get to see it. And Lexi Thompson wins the tournament. She's a year younger than me, but it was really cool, and it definitely made me hungry. And it's funny when I look back on it. I remembered I used to do this when I finally made it to the LPGA and I'm playing tournaments. I remember seeing like the girls that would Monday qualify, like in passing or in dining or whatever throughout the week, and be like, I so vividly remember that feeling. And I would tell these girls, really take it in, like, enjoy your week here. Don't be nervous. You have absolutely nothing to lose. Yeah, you could have something to gain if you go and win the golf tournament, but you have nothing to lose. Like, seriously, take it all in and enjoy it, because it's something that you're going to remember probably for the rest of your life. And it's true. It's something that I know I'll remember for the rest of my life. Playing in my first LPGA event and making the cut. Once I started playing on the LPGA every week, I'm like, it was easy for me to make it when I was in high school. Why is it so hard now? But no, all good memories, and that week is something that I'll remember forever. But that golf course is definitely special to me. I ended up winning another Symetra Tour event on that golf course. So it's one of my favorites. You can cut corners, and there's no trees, and the greens are everything bowls down to the pins. You can get really aggressive out there. So if you're having good ball striking day or ball striking week on that golf course, you know, par should be 66, 67.
Yeah, that's back when you could bomb it 290.
Yeah, not anymore. Those days are over, unfortunately. But I used to love cutting the corners out there. I would hit driver on every hole. And a lot of the girls that I was playing with, they'd pull hybrid or 3-wood and just sort of like, go up the left side and follow the course of the hole. And I would just, I'm taking that hook out and I'm going straight over and cheating almost.
The Mark Blackburn method.
Yeah, I mean he lived by it, and in return I did too. I thought if it's Blackburn approved, I'm doing it.
That's kind of where the game has gone, professionally, the bomb and gouge. Back in the day, like at a U.S. Open, it was about hitting fairways. Now it's hit it as far as you can. And
yeah. Well, I mean, you think about it too. If you're hitting driver and you're at a place with thick rough versus guys who are hitting 4-iron or hybrid off the tee, if you're missing the fairway, you're probably still going to have a wedge in. So you're going to get it out of that rough a lot easier than the guy who hit it in the rough with 4-iron and has 5-iron into the green. So it has its advantages too. But the game is definitely, not only the game, but the technology has progressed so insanely that it's like every year they're putting out new technology and the ball's just going even farther. Granted, people are getting stronger. Golfers are actually wanting to be athletes, which is really cool, and taking care of their body, training hard. So you mix that with the technology, and I don't think that's going to slow down at all. I think people are only going to continue to hit it farther and farther and farther.
Yeah. Chris, you got anything? I could talk with Janie all day, actually.
All day, but yeah, be respectful of your time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
Very enlightening, and you've had some really good stories, and appreciate it. Maybe we can get you as a partner for a scramble sometime.
Like I said, I'm always in for a good scramble as long as one of y'all is bringing the beer.
I can handle that part.
All right.
Just a word of warning to anybody listening to this who, if a young lady shows up on the first tee wanting to play Wolf for $1,500 a hole, I would run. I would not get in that game with this young lady.
I'd love to go back and do that again.
We appreciate your time, Janie. Again, hopefully, maybe we can tee it up sometime.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I would love that.
Have a
All right. Thank you, guys. Y'all too.
Well, we want to thank Janie for spending some time with us today. Hope you enjoyed that. She had some great stories, and who knows, we might be able to get her back on sometime in the future.
Yeah, maybe she'll give us the not PG rated stories that she mentioned, and go a little deeper into the for mature audiences only. But we do. It was a blast getting to catch up with Janie again. She had such a great high school and college career, and had some success playing professionally. Unfortunately, those injuries derailed her career. But we're glad she's back in Huntsville and still playing scramble golf and occasionally in the men's game. So, but again, thanks to Janie. And next week we're going to do a little I'm going to do a little self-promoting as I take my first trip across the pond to Scotland to play some courses over there. And I'll give a recap on how everybody needs to probably go to Scotland and play golf once in their lifetime. Yeah. Assuming I do come back, and assuming, that I have a good time.
So what you saying with that, we may start having a satellite office for the Cart Barn podcast over in Scotland?
We'll see. I do know the weather's not going to be as humid and hot over there as it is here right now, but I'm looking forward to it. And I think for me, what's setting this trip apart is we're playing some not courses that a lot of people are familiar with. It's kind of off the beaten path. and we wanted to do a little, wanted to get a real Scottish experience with going into towns and visiting places that aren't on most people's radar. So
Yeah.
I'll have a full report on that.
Well, Greg, I hope you have a great trip, and looking forward to getting the updates. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in to this week's edition of the Cart Barn. We appreciate it, and we'll catch you next week on the Cart Barn Podcast.